let's begin with give us a little background about yourself. Tell us kind of what you do, who you are, and your connections to AI a little bit, if you could.
Sure. So my name is Mark Frydenberg. I teach um, information systems at Bentley University. Bentley is a business school outside of Boston, and as I said, I'm a distinguished lecturer in computer information systems. Um, I'm also the director of the school's technology uh, learning and technology Sandbox, which is a technology learning space for computing and the social space. And
And,
you can
and
visit.
this and the sandbox piece is some people might not know what that might mean. What does the sandbox entail?
So you can visit us online at cissandbox.com. We are it's a social learning space where kids come for either tutoring help or for extracurricular activities related to informal technology learning.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and that can be anything from uh, career speakers bringing back alumni who talk about their jobs to I took the students I guess last month, I guess it's no, April, not April, 2 months ago, whenever it was. We went to Fenway Park because I happen to know someone who works there who is the CIO and gave us a tour of like all the technology they use at Fenway Park.
Mm.
So anything. So in addition to tutoring support, we also I really try to focus on informal learning around technology and how students can learn applications of technology in the real world in ways they might otherwise see.
Ah, okay.
And we have gadgets for them to play with, tablets and Raspberry Pis and VR headsets and things like that to encourage creativity and exploring technology projects on their own.
Okay, well, that's a great segue to like one of the things I can't wait to talk to you about. It's project-based learning, especially with AI. You just mentioned real world. I mean, real world. Some people might not know some of the main components of project-based learning, and everyone does it differently. Um, I've been a big fan of PBL Works, even when they were known as the Buck Institute, some of the gold standard PBL. But there's different philosophies and styles of integrating PBL. So do you want to kind of kick that off and tell us a little bit about what you do with PBL and how that might look, especially with AI?
Um, so for me, the goal of project-based learning is to give students an individual experience that they can then use to create something so that when they're done, they can say, they have a story to tell. Let's start with that basic premise that it's a way for me, project-based learning is a way to give students the opportunity to be creative, to do critical thinking, to develop their own ideas, and when they're done, have a story to tell that they can say, I made this, I thought about this, I built this. I as a, especially on a job interview or in a graduate school application, the ability to show something that you did is incredibly useful.
So
Um,
personalized, also an artifact or a real world like presentation or um, some kind of tangible thing to create. Is that something that you guys usually do too, as
yeah,
part of the project?
yeah, some tangible thing that they can say that they built or they made. So one of the projects that one of the students who works with me did last year that was AI based was they were looking into building a chatbot
Okay.
for the most commonly asked questions around Excel or computing concepts. And so they this was a student who knew that he worked as a tutor in our lab. He knew the kinds of questions the students asked. He went out and found um, materials from that were open source relevant to the course, and sort of built a language model or built a domain knowledge set based on that material, and then prototyped a simple chatbot that students could interact with
Hmm.
for learning. We prototyped it a bit. We haven't put it into major production, but it was more of a proof of concept piece that this is sort of something that we could do. I think that as educators, we need to learn how we need to we need to rethink how we assess learning in this age of AI,
Mm,
because the reality is students are going to use it
right.
whether we tell them they can or they can't,
Yes.
right? So let's start with that as a basic premise. And so
Yes.
that means that for someone to, if we need to think about how we can design assignments that actually require them to use AI without, where AI becomes the means to something greater.
Mm, right. Right.
Um, I'll give you an example. Um, in a introductory computing course that I teach, I do a very short unit on coding with Python. And for the last piece of the unit, um, we show the students how to build charts and graphs in in Python, because that's something already that they previously learned how to do in Excel. But coding those is a pain
Mm,
if you're a novice. But if you can come up with a prompt that says, give me a pie chart from this data and make the wedges green and the labels here and the title there, Python will give you the code and generate the chart for you. But then
mm,
it's up to the student to figure out, is that correct? Or how do I modify my prompt so it looks like what I want it to look like? So in this case, they're using AI to get something, but they have to actually verify what AI gave them is actually correct.
yeah.
In another course that I taught last year, we did some problem solving exercises. And the first week we said, come up with your own solution to this. Don't use AI, please. And we trusted that they
Okay.
didn't. And then the second week, we said, now use AI to solve the exact same problem that you just did. And
Mm,
then critique their solution and decide which one you like better. Do you like yours better? Do you like theirs better? Why?
mm, mm,
And are there things that the AI did that you didn't think about? Are there things that what did AI bring up for you that you may not have considered? And really get at the critical thinking of evaluating the AI solutions so that so they can see that AI will give you some stuff that you may not have thought about. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not relevant.
mm.
And sometimes you might actually like your own ideas better. And I think,
And
but
when you gave that to them, did you ask them ahead of time, or did you kind of let them know ahead of time that that's what was going to happen, so that they were
yes,
less inclined to try to, use AI right from the start,
yeah,
because they
yeah,
could
yeah. The
trust.
instruction said week one you're going to do this way, week two you're going to do it that way. So
Yeah,
please don't use AI for week one because you'll have your chance to do that next week.
yeah, yeah, and that probably got them to buy into it more, I would think.
Yeah,
You
because they
know,
knew that they could, because they knew that the idea was to compare notes when they were done.
yeah, yeah, that's cool.
And so, but it's not about using AI to get an answer, but it's using AI in a way to formulate your own ideas and evaluate your ideas based on what it gives you and say, yeah, I can use that, or no, I
Yeah,
can't.
okay. Oh, that sounds great. And then what are there certain aspects of storytelling that you either that student or another student or that you focus on when you introduce PPL? So the connections to storytelling pretty strong.
Um, I think really the connection to storytelling for me would be having the student be able to having students be able to identify the roles that they are taking on
Mm,
in a project, and and how they can um, complete them in either with the help of AI or without, depending what the project is. So I think I'm not sure the goal. I think for me is, like, again, to have a student come back and say this the pro. Let me start that again. I think the piece that I think that we have to think about most in this AI time is not the product that they produce, but the process that they go through in
mm.
creating it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
because that's I think where the learning happens
Mm,
is, and when you have the most you can actually talk about, right, is in the process of creating whatever it is that you're working on.
Mm. Well, I know part of I mean, I've always been a big fan of the inquiry process, especially that occurs with project-based learning, trying to, a lot of times, um, students will need their project to answer a specific question or a really difficult problem, try to solve, and that whole process of knowing how to ask questions, how to, kind of un help unfold the thinking that can occur after they make progress and start learning things and what new questions might arrive and how that can kind of extend out. So do your students do they collaborate with AI at all during that inquiry process at all, or how do they what are the guidelines or steps that you follow that relate to their use of AI when they're doing their projects?
It depends on the project, but in general, um, most of us would encourage students to use AI as a brainstorming tool,
Mm,
as a way to, perhaps think about something on your own, and then ask AI the questions and see if it comes up with something different that you may not have considered. I think that's a piece that where AI can be most helpful. The problem is if you do that too much, then we become over reliant on the tools and don't do as much critical thinking as we probably
mm,
should. Right.
right, right.
I I think the big piece. So the pieces of project based learning are really number one, taking ownership of the project, figuring out what it is that you want to do, and then being creative and collaborating and the critical thinking that goes with that to come up with a solution. And but it really begins with making it your own
Mm,
and doing things that because I think if you do something you're more interested in that on your that's of your own choosing or the, relevant to whatever the course is, your students will be much more interested in that as opposed to if I said everybody do this, right?
right, right, right.
Um,
That self-directed learning piece to it.
right. So we had a contest at Bentley in the spring through the lab that I run, where we invited students to submit proposals of any technology-based project that they might have worked on, and it was a it was like a lightning presentation format,
Mm,
7 minutes of presenting followed by 3 minutes of Q&A, and then we gave out prizes to the winners at the end. And it was interesting for me to see the variety of topics that we got, and also which students either spoke about AI or used AI or did not in the project. I think in their projects, I think about half of them were in some way AI related because that's the later that's like the latest thing that or what the current that's the current topic that people are interested in.
mm. Um, have you were there any like roadblocks or challenges that you've experienced in trying to integrate AI with project-based learning? Like do you have, student problems or any kind of technical problems or any things that you were worried about?
Yes, number one, as I said, is over reliance.
Hmm.
If the idea that AI can do it for you as opposed to with you, I think is a big thing. Once you get beyond that, sometimes I've noticed that when students use AI, they don't always understand what AI is doing for them or
Mm,
is telling them. And that could be in an essay type thing where AI will use vocabulary that they're words that they're not familiar with. It could be in a coding project where it uses coding techniques that weren't necessarily covered in class. It could be in a writing assignment where it doesn't take into account the styles that or the parameters for what the project might be, and they don't pick up on that. And so
mm,
I think part of the challenge is goes goes back to look at what AI gives you, and if you don't understand it, don't use it. Or if you
mm.
don't understand it, try and figure out what it's doing. Because
Right, right.
undoubtedly it will use. it will do something that the student isn't familiar with, and they've got to figure out what. And the real learning comes when they figure out what that actually is.
Right.
And
Well, it,
that might be by the way, by rethinking the prompts and saying, explain to me what you mean by this, right? Don't just take
yeah,
it and go.
right. Well, and I know a lot of teachers and professors and librarians have problems when students, you know, don't verify and double check the information they get. They just take it for what it's worth, and then Um, if they don't cite it properly, then you're dealing with plagiarism concerns. But the whole concept that even though it might look like it is correct, if they don't use critical thinking to verify it, then um, that can not only, get them in trouble, it could also just defeat the whole purpose of whatever they're trying to learn.
I mean, the other AI, academic integrity, is the is the big thing that everybody's worried about, right? Kids are going to cheat,
Yeah.
and we have to be careful of that. I think if you make realistic policies and clear policies around AI usage, that goes a long way to compliance on students' part. The different universities and different universities have different policies around AI. Some are you can use it, you can't use it, you can only use it for this kind of assignment. And at Bentley, our policy on AI is you have to have one, but it can differ by the course or it can differ by the assignment, or as long as it's clear what students can or can't do.
Hmm.
That's the important thing because we recognize that you might you might want to have an AI based assignment where they do use it, right? And I've given you a few examples of the kinds of assignments those might be. So and you know they're going to use it anyway. So that's why um, if you can use AI to optimize the process of learning so that it helps give you personalized suggestions, then that's a good thing. If the students just take what it gives you and don't really consider its validity or the evidence that goes with it, that's not a good thing.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but project-based learning with AI would certainly require um, a different kind of collaboration because you're not only working with people, you're working with an AI based tool.
Hmm. Um, what would you say is one of the most interesting or latest tools or advancements in AI that are you're most curious or passionate about? Like, is there anything that really like intrigues you?
Um, I've been using the professional version of ChatGPT, and I was just amazed at some of the things that it can do. I was doing some research, and I had several different documents, and I basically pasted them into ChatGPT and said, look for the number of specific different things in each one, and then make me a chart. And it was able to take the PDFs and then generate code for the chart to show me a graph of what I was looking for. Saved me a ton of time, although
Mm,
I wouldn't use it in a research paper without reconfirming those results myself to make sure that it was accurate. But at least it gave me some sense of the direction of what to look for, where to go.
mm,
Uh, I mean, I know librarians are always helping with citations and trying to figure out what sources to use and how you cite AI as it differs. I think there are emerging standards on that, and being able to say and I think it's becoming more acceptable to be able to say I used AI to generate this
mm,
as long as you did,
yeah.
as long as you cite it that way.
Well,
For so for me, would I wouldn't take something directly that AI gave me. I might take pieces of it and adapt it, add my own ideas to it, and say adapted from a table generated by ChatGPT with this query.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's clear that I was it was AI inspired, but not AI entirely created.
Mm. Yeah, it's becoming more difficult to differentiate exactly how and how to define the use of AI because I mean depending on what you do and how you do it, like you can I like a lot of times when I'm working on something, I will use three or four different chat bots and then on top of that, depending on what the research, I'll research first and then depending on what kind of research I find, I'll brainstorm with it. I'll start drafting my own ideas. I mean, it's all over the board with how I use it. And then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll create the first draft and then I'll give it to a chat bot and I'll ask it for feedback on it. And then it'll give me suggestions and things that I'm missing, like, oh, you may want to mention this or you forgot that, or this could be reworded differently and
Was that your
better.
approach? Was that your approach in writing the book?
Well, that was one approach, but there was just so many different. It
So
evolved as I wrote it, like incredible.
sure. So for me, Perplexity is the one I use mostly for literature reviews. 'Cause it's great at finding targeted sources and coming up with the links to them.
Yep.
Um, I think a little bit better than Google Scholar if you ask it for reference or peer-reviewed journals or articles. So I'm big on it. So which means that the days of assigning students to do a literature review are pretty much over because AI can do that for you in 5 minutes.
Right.
The the challenge though, I think, and and I've seen this in I teach a first year seminar course at Bentley from time to time where we do a unit on AI literacy. And one of the things that we have somebody from the library come in and talk to the students about this exact thing. One of the things that he'll show them how to do is use the library website, database website to actually look for. So if AI comes up with a link to an article in a journal, he'll show them how to actually go find that journal on the library website so they can verify that what AI gave them is actually an accurate publication.
Mm,
The tools are getting much better at this, but when they first came out, hallucinations were great, and it would make stuff up.
right.
It,
Right.
it would come up with articles that sounded like real articles and journals that sounded like real journals that were real journals. But when you go to the web pages for those journals, those articles weren't there.
Yep.
It's gotten better, but
Yeah. Yep.
you still need to check everything that it gives you. And I think one of the reasons that Perplexity is good is because it actually gives you the direct links to those articles online. So
Yeah.
I so I
I'm a
use
big fan.
I'm a big fan of Perplexity for that purpose. Um, I've been using Canva a lot. Are you
Mm.
familiar with Canva
Yeah. Oh yeah.
for
Yeah.
graphics creation?
Okay.
Um,
It's a popular tool, like incredibly popular.
uh,
I still prefer like Photoshop and I mean generative AI is pretty incredible at how
yeah,
different it is.
I was creating an online course and I wanted different kinds of graphics for each of the different sections of the online course to all follow, but all in the same themes. They look related, but were different. And so I would say, draw me a flat icon style image of people sitting at a desk using having a conversation with tech and using cell phones. And I would get like five of them. And so I would just use each one of those as a different banner header or something like that. So my friends who are artists are not very happy with generative AI for art because they say it's not really
Yeah,
art.
right.
It's image generation, but
Yep.
for for some for stuff like that, I think it's clearly AI generated art, and it's a time saver and productivity saver there as well.
Hmm.
Um, Google Notebook, have you used that? Yeah,
Notebook
where
LM.
you upload what? Yeah,
Yeah,
Google LM.
Notebook LM. Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Yep,
Where
yep,
you upload
Notebook LM.
you upload your paper, and then it finds a couple people to have a conversation with you about it.
Right, like a podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
scary,
Yeah.
but wait.
Yeah, I was just talking with someone recently about that, and the improvements that these voice models now, like their ability to, fluctuate their tone and expression in their voices and sound so incredibly human-like. It's you can't distinguish. I mean, that's part of the controversy of AI is it's just becoming indistinguishable between human and AI generated content.
What was
Um,
interesting to me with that was I was playing with it, and I uploaded a research paper that I'd written that was written in a somewhat more formal style that you use for a journal or article than in a conversation like you and I are having right now. And it was able to um, interpret the article and then generate this podcast between these two non-human voices that was in a much more colloquial style with uh, much more informal than. And I'm thinking, here's a really good educational tool, maybe
mhm.
because students who might have learning challenges might be able to use something like this to get somebody to help interpret the main ideas of an article for them.
Yeah.
On the other
Yep.
hand, then they lose the ability to actually read scholarly articles on their own. So
Yeah.
it's a challenge.
It is. I
But
mean, and people have there's different learning styles for different people, and that really I think it's become so popular. I think because a lot of people do prefer alternative learning styles. I mean, some people are visual and some people are auditory. Um, and yeah, I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I'm a power user of learning through YouTube, especially with AI and I wrote one of my chapters is about storytelling and oh my gosh, some of the YouTubers that I follow that teach you about all the different advanced tools for digital storytelling with AI, it's pretty amazing. And the implications in how that's going to be affecting our entertainment, digital content, and all that. It's already changing, but as AI advances at the rate it is, it's gonna it's gonna like completely change. It's gonna be pretty like incredible about what content can be created. I mean, I know a lot of people are worried and scared and upset about the bad stuff that comes along with that, which I am too. But on a positive note, I also think like you mentioned something with your artist friends being upset about that, and that's of course been popular right from the start once AI could make images and stuff. But I feel like, and I agree, I don't like, I respect that frustration that people have. I also think though that a lot of times we're more likely to be offended or upset about stuff like that if it's contradicts what we're passionate about. If we're writers and all of a sudden now yeah, I can write, like that's not cool. But if I hate writing and I don't, I just, you know what I mean by, I don't mean to say that I don't know if it's a natural hypocrisy or, but I think that I just wonder if human nature, people are more likely to object to something if it doesn't align quite with what they believe or what their interests are. What do you think about that? It's kind of a heavy thought, but
people use the AI, rely on AI more to do the things that they don't want to do.
yeah,
I also think that the the kind of writing that you're talking about is something that we need to really think about as teachers because I think if students use AI to write term papers and teachers use AI to read and interpret the main ideas from term papers, like
right. What's the
what's
purpose?
wrong?
What's the sense?
What's wrong with this picture here? I think
Yeah.
right. So I think but yet you still need to know how to do that kind of research and that kind of writing.
Hmm.
But the reality is that the solely relying on people presenting their work in the form of a term paper is dead.
Yeah, I think that's the
And
point.
and maybe the better way to do that is through um, debates or presentations
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
podcasts or videos.
Right, right.
Um, in the online class that I it's asynchronous online class that I teach. I um I didn't do exams the way I would normally do in person because I have no idea who's doing them. Right? I don't
Mm-hmm.
see the students because they take the course asynchronously. So
Mm-hmm.
I could the best I could do is um, say you have 60 minutes from the time you start this to the time you stop this to send in your solution, but I don't know who's sitting there doing it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I structure the quiz as a one-on-one conversation with me. And if they want to use AI to prepare for it, knock yourself out. If they don't, that's okay too. I'll give them a problem to think about, and then when we get together it's a 30-minute interview, and during the first 10 minutes, I'll ask them to explain the basic ideas or the solution they came up with, and then if they had AI to help them with it, that's fine as long as they learn something from it. I can
Right,
explain
right.
what their solution is, and I don't care whether you use AI or not. The
Mm,
real
that's
telling is for the last 20 minutes, when I say to them, now suppose we add this extra constraint to the problem. How would you solve it now?
mm-hmm.
And they have to like think through it, think on their feet and think through it
Mm-hmm.
and generate and tell me what they would do in that case. So they can't use AI for that. And it shows me how they can think and if they're following along, if they get it. And exams like this are much less complete or much less comprehensive than a much than an in-person exam might be.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, after about 10 minutes, you have an idea of who gets it and who doesn't.
Yeah.
And at the end of the conversation, the question then becomes, how do you grade this fairly?
Mm.
And for me, what I tend to do is I'll have a grade in mind or a number in mind on each part of the problem. And I'll ask the student, how do you think you did on this? And did I give you what percent of this do you think you did on your own versus how many hints did I have to give you? Did I give you, or how many prompts did I give you to steer you in the right direction? And if they say you helped me with about half of it, then they get 50%. If they say you helped me with about 20% of it, then they get 80%. But I'll have a number in mind, and they'll have a number in mind, and I'll if we're within a difference of one on a scale of 1 to 10, or I'll generally or two, I'll generally go with it. But if it's more than that, then we have to figure out why we have different ideas. But that's been really useful, and it really puts the burden on the student to demonstrate that they actually learned something.
Well, and circling back to project-based learning, I mean, that's part of the benefits, to assessing students through their project is that compared to like a term paper or a final exam is that, they get to kind of direct their what it is that they're learning and showcase how they learned what it is they learned. I mean, I think the best facilitation of project-based learning. I mean, because it's, depending on what kind of model you follow and what your philosophies are with it, but a lot of people believe that, teachers become more like facilitators and the students are more like their own individual learners. But, I think really effective project-based learning, the facilitator will structure like concrete, objectives, learning objectives that the student will help create. And once there's an agreed buy-in to what those objectives might be, and making sure that the teacher's got to make sure that they're rigorous enough, then I think students are more likely to be able to learn and demonstrate their learning because it ties into what they want and what they're interested in. Um,
Exactly what would be evaluated on.
yeah.
So I think you're
Okay.
right. The reality is that with AI they have anything they need to know is at their fingertips, right? Whether they use AI or Google or something, they can
Hmm.
find it. But the real learning and the real benefit of giving projects in any course is not what you know, but what you can do with what you know.
Ooh, that's good. What you can do with what you know. Yeah, you're right. I love that.
They need to know when and how to apply their knowledge and how to do it, obviously, um, legally or ethically or
Hmm.
following appropriate citation rules or following appropriate AI policies. or information policies around the information that they use.
Yep.
And that the other thing that we've, I think, um, is happening, at least in higher education, is a trend for much more interdisciplinary work and projects. So it may not be a student in a sociology class working on a sociology project, but it might be a student in a sociology class pairing up with somebody from a data analytics class, for example,
Mm.
to try
Mm-hmm.
and uh, uh, work on. So you have expertise from different domains, and they have to figure out things together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that I think is reflective of real world applications,
Yeah, right.
and it's
Collaboration.
also and real world opportunities for collaboration when you're not always working with people who are like you.
Right.
Um, at Bentley, we started an AI for innovation major last year, I think last year. And what makes it unique is that it's offered by both the information systems department that I'm in and also philosophy. And it includes courses from across the curriculum. So it's not just, you know, three computing courses and you're done. It's courses on logic and ethics from philosophy, courses on programming and machine learning, and the technical component from CIS. There's a cyber law class I think that's part of it. So there's just and other disciplines are invited to submit courses in their department that somehow use AI for in a business context, and to be considered to count as elective toward this major. So
Mm.
it's not your traditional AI major that you would get at a computer science program, but it's it's intentionally called AI for innovation because it was developed from the beginning as a interdisciplinary major to reflect the impact that AI is having on so many different areas. And
Mm.
that's
That's
we've seen
interesting.
that with technology in over the years in general. It's not. It used to be enough to know like how computers work, but now the tools have gotten so much better that it's how can I use them in my discipline.
Mm. Oh, that's really interesting. All right, one more question, or maybe two. For the Love of Libraries is the name of the podcast. The goal is to empower librarians to lead with confidence in the age of AI. Can you share a story of a librarian that influenced you, good memory, or a library itself? Any kind of motivational story or connection that you have?
In the age of AI,
Well, not really. It's just that's the theme of the podcast. But the question now is more just about for the love of libraries. Yeah, the connection to AI is and the title is that because AI is so evasive in our society, as librarians can embrace and help their communities learn how to, use it and become AI literate, that will help strengthen and preserve libraries. That's the theme with For the Love of Libraries. So my question for you is a little bit different. It's more specific about just fun, like is there a librarian or a library that you remember that brought joy or happiness to you?
a good friend of mine is a high school librarian, and
Okay.
I actually have not seen them at work. I know what they do, and I know that I hear the same kinds of stories that we've been talking about uh, from them around students having much more tech savvy skills than some librarians do. And I think that this is really isn't answering your question, but I think that it knowing how to rely on what my friend does is he'll rely on students who know more about this stuff than he might to help him
Hmm.
get to help him get acclimated and figure some of these things out. Um, I actually
Yeah, but I love that because I think the best teachers I've worked with and a lot of the best librarians, and I know like the most effective, the most well-loved, they're leaders in demonstrating vulnerability and willingness to admit when they're not sure about stuff. And I think that like when leaders do that, when librarians do that, they emit a sense of safety and trust with their students to be like, hey, let me kind of help share what I know. And I think that's empowering. So
It,
I
it is,
appreciate that.
no, it is, it shows that not everybody knows everything, and teachers and librarians are, well, I always have this image that like librarians knew everything, right? Because
Yeah, yeah,
they work in libraries, they read encyclopedias all the time. It's
right,
completely not the case, but that's sort of what I thought. Or you call a reference library because they like have the answers to everything back in the,
right.
but
Yeah.
really,
I mean, but the
we can
reason I
learn from,
think
it shows that we can learn from our students as well.
yes, for sure. Well, and I think that I don't know if it's called a stereotype or it's a good stereotype. I don't know if it's called a stereotype or not, but that connotation maybe is it makes me think of back when libraries started, thousands of years ago. It was the only place you would go to find written information, and they were the keepers of knowledge basically, and as books developed and, technology and the internet and everything, that's things have changed now. So, I mean, our role now is more about like information literacy, and this is why AI literacy is a big part of it too, is like helping people navigate the
Absolutely. I
complexities.
mean, the the university website, the library at my university has on their website a chat with a librarian feature because,
Hmm.
and I think that's like probably like the only, and they, because they want to make themselves accessible and relevant and not necessarily be the stereotype uh librarian of when you and I were in school.